we are encountering, again, off-world, non-human entities, and however they're able to be here, whatever they're operating, vehicles or what. And that is just the story of the 21st century. This is changing everything. We're at an inflection point in our understanding of our place in the universe, and the understanding of the physics and technology around that. It's just mind-blowing. Think about what can happen because of this. Could learn new ways of meeting the challenges of our planet, food insecurity, climate change, our own understanding of our social science, and the way we think. If there's more than us, we may be hopefully behaving better towards each other on the international stage if we find these things out. But to go ahead and take your question about where do I want to bring my oceanographic expertise. So because I have years of experience in that field, it just makes sense for me to look at it from that angle and focus on that maritime undersea domain. Because we know these objects from multiple reports have exhibited transmedium movement, and I've received reports from people and of occurrences undersea, so you can call them undersea UAP or what have you, and or USOs. That's the term of art I think people use a lot too, unidentified submerged objects.
And you have a friend you mentioned as well in the Merge podcast that actually checked out some coordinates out under the Catalina or nearby the Catalina Islands. Amazing effort there. Can you explain what he found and what your thoughts are on that area?
Right. That was interesting. There is a geologic feature that I described on Ryan's show that right now I've not been able to find a natural explanation for. It looks like a wedge taken off a thing called a knoll. It looks like an underwater ridge, basically. And a wedge from it was totally carved out and horizontally displaced 2 kilometers. It's on the seafloor. It's at a depth of about 700 meters. And of course, I just want to find an explanation for it, but it does cause one to speculate. Is that evidence of undersea UAP interaction with the seafloor, or a location for undersea infrastructure where these things go? And so that's what my friend, Victor Vescovo is his name. He's a world famous undersea explorer. He's been diving in all the deepest trenches of the world, and is a human occupied submersible that he built, and he also acquired the ship to do it. And he spent $50 million of his own money to go mapping and exploring all around the world's oceans. And so at the time I knew him, I had an agreement signed with him when I was at NOAA for him to map and explore the oceans and share his data with us. And Victor, as we stayed in touch, told me he was going to do some checkout data collection of a new sonar system he put on a ship. And when I heard about it, it was off SoCal, and we were hearing all this news about SoCal UAP. I said, hey, if you really want to do a underwater expedition like none other, I got some coordinates for you. And I explained to him why, and he didn't laugh or not answer me. He said, send me the coordinates. And he did. And he went and mapped that to a higher resolution than we had before, but he wasn't able to get video on it. And that's what we really wanted. And so now that's the next step, is getting a remotely operated vehicle from a ship, tethered to a ship, and really getting some video on the feature and where it was taken from, and we'll see what we find.
Greetings and welcome to Ancient Library. This is Tome number 16 about USOs and Transmedium craft, so basically UFOs and water. Before we start with the overview, I'll give you a quick general facts about our planet. 70% of the surface of our planet is water, and we got 5% of the volume of the water of our planet explored. So 95% is unexplored basically. And from the ocean seafloor, we got 25 to 50% mapped or explored in high definition basically. So there's a lot we don't know about our own planet. So now I'll give you a quick overview what you can expect in this episode. At first, we're going to talk about what are USOs, the definition, some terms, USO, Transmedium, fast mover. Then we go over some cases involving USOs and hotspots. Then we talk about an important figure in ufology these days, retired Rear Admiral T.Gallaudet. Then we talk about a controversial spot or feature on the seafloor mentioned by T.Gallaudet in the intro. And then we dive a little deeper. Are they coming from the depths of the ocean? We do a little thought experiment and talk about the ultra-terrestrial hypothesis. Then I give you my quick synopsis and own thoughts on the matter and everything attached to the subject of USOs. So let's start with the first section. What are USOs? The definition of USO, or the meaning, is unidentified submerged object. So basically a UFO underwater. It's essentially a UFO sighting connected with any body of water, mostly the ocean or deep lakes. Fast mover is basically an object which moves in incredible speeds, which cannot be done by our own vehicles, craft, submarines, or whatever. This can be in space or in the water. We're gonna get deeper on this later. Transmedium means the vehicle or the craft can move through different mediums, like water, space, or the atmosphere, so basically air. Transmedium could be through even more unimaginable things like lava or high pressure, or even time, speaking of very high advanced technology here. So you can see that USO isn't really something new, just a deeper classification of UFOs, ufology in general. Kinda like early computer gaming. At first it was a niche and these nerds were all around, and now it's a big thing containing all kinds of niches and all types of facets in the gaming area. That's a quick analogy on my side. So let's look at some cases and frequent locations of USO sightings. We start with the cases here. Before we take a closer look at some selected incidents, let me run through some rather popular footage showing UAP with USO characteristics. At first, we're going to take a look at the Go Fast video, a very popular clip with a more popular audio in my mind. I heard this audio for thousands of times. Every UFO video got this in the intro or outro, every mainstream channel, you're going to see what I mean. I played a clip, it's only 30 seconds long.
Nickel 6-1 Tango Logic, over.
Oh, got it! Woohoo!
Roger, there's troubleshooting right here.
Did you box moving target?
602.
No, I took an auto track. Oh, okay. Oh my gosh, dude. Wow, look at it fly!
So this was the clip. I think the full video is way longer, and on the full video you can see the UFO flying over the water and then going into the water. That's why it's considered a USO as well. There's cases from the USS Omaha. It's been swamped by UFOs in this case, because they were over the water. And there are all kinds of military cases where we can't get the whole picture because we get 30 seconds clips out of 10, 20 minute long footage. So it just feeds many assumptions, speaking on these military cases. So the next case I want to touch on is the jellyfish case, like this jellyfish type of balloon type object flying over a military base in Iraq, and allegedly debunked by VFX artists called a balloon, but allegedly after this clip there's longer footage, again what I just mentioned, where the thing is going into the water. But I think that's a key element because a balloon can't go into the water or someone is destroyed it or something. So you're going to see what I mean here. It's feeding assumptions all along these military cases. So but let's take a closer look at some other cases involving UAPs over or under the water. And one creepy case which even involves more than simple sightings of USOs. The first case I want to touch on, or the first town I want to touch on, is Aguadilla. I think I pronounced it right, it's in Puerto Rico. And let's move to the Caribbean, or more concrete, Puerto Rico, and a town located in the northwest corner of the rectangular-shaped island. We will touch on two cases happened in July 1989 and in April of 2013. And there are even more UAP USO reports coming from this small town with a population of 50,000 people. So Aguadilla, July 1989. Inocencio Cataquet is a local fisherman. I'll put you some text here on the screen so you can follow me while describing the case. He's a fisherman and he's in deep waters at around 6 p.m. He's seeing a shiny object moving underwater, 200 feet in diameter, so very huge USO, and traveled at 500 feet away from him. So he grabs his snorkel, he is a trained snorkeler, and dives and examines the gray disc craft. He allegedly touched the UFO, and it feels like sand or a concrete wall. That's his feel, what he was describing. And he said it felt like water was sucked in the top of the craft and was expelled at the bottom of the craft. And we can speculate here. That's just one case out of this town. There are many cases from Aguadilla. And we move to the next one. This is a military case on April 25, 2013. And it's a classified video but this has been leaked. And there was even a letter from a guy who works on this military base and corroborates the incident, and he's going into details there. So I think that's a pretty strong statement. I'm going to show you the letter later, and I'm going to link it in the description as well. So I'm going to show you the clip right here. And the total clip is like 4 minutes long. This is just a quick segment. And you can see there's a flying thing. I think it's red hot. Not red hot, it's white hot. So it's a military instrument where this thing has been recorded. And you can see it's not a normal camera. And it's flying over the base. And then at the end of the video, you can see there's another thing meeting up with the thing over the water, and they're going into the water. That's why this is, this is described as a USO case. So yeah, we're going to take a quick look at the letter here. And since it's an anonymous source, because he feared like some people can go up to him and he can lose his job or something because he's under NDA, I guess. So it's anonymous, so it's not really holding that much weight, but it's at least something. And it's just on one small case, and it's good that people try to corroborate this if this letter is genuine. But yeah, let's talk about before we talk about hotspots and frequent locations. We do this at a later time in this video. Let's proceed with the next case involving USO activities. And that's like the famous TicTac USS Nimitz account. I think it's a UFO account because the TicTac is not going underwater. But if you know the case, you know that the TicTac is allegedly doing something over the water, and there's some white water below it. So it's either the TicTac doing something, or there's something under the water with he's interacting with. So I'm going to give you a quick overview about the case if you don't know it. Famous UFO sighting in the North Pacific Ocean near the coast of San Diego. Tic-tac-shaped craft, a white tic-tac-shaped craft, was witnessed by Commander David Fravor flying a Super Hornet fighter jet in a scheduled exercise which has been affected by the incident. And he's also looking at this tic-tac and said, okay, I'm gonna chase this tic-tac. So this is also on radar and FLIR and all kinds of instruments. And like I said, the tic-tac interacted with something underneath the water. So that's a classified USO since it's unidentified. It's a UAP. The USS Nimitz is also nuclear powered. So maybe there's a connection because the UFOs are nuke stuff. I did a last video about this. You can check the card, you can check the videos, 20 minutes long. And it's like a basic guide about the UFO and nukes subsection of ufology. But I want to just touch on this case briefly. There are plenty of sources, interviews, and podcasts about this rather famous case, the USS Nimitz Commander Fravor account. Which you can find in the description. I'm going to put some stuff in there. So let's go to the next case, the undated Russian submarine incident. So since it's undated, I'm trying to narrow the date here, and it could be between 1960 and 2000 is my guess. So it's a nuclear Russian sub in deep waters, encountering a formation of USOs, 6 disc-shaped objects moving at 265 miles per second, and the crew fears a collision. So they initiate an emergency surface, so the sub is going underwater again, and they also said the objects are mirroring the movement from the sub, so they stay at the same distance, so a little bit like an autopilot thing. And the UFOs also surface and dart off in a formation into space. So this is just a quick Russian case, and we're gonna move to the next one, which is also in Russian territory, which is pretty big. So I think there are even more cases, and there's not so much coming out of Russia. So there's a very small chance to get an update or additional information on these cases in general. And the following one is a very wild one. So allegedly in 1982 in Siberia at Lake Baikal, which is like in between like Mongol and Russia, I think it's in between, so in between Russia and China basically, which is the deepest freshwater lake on Earth, by the way, with 1,642 meters or 5,387 feet depth. The Russian Navy conducted a research mission containing of 7 professional divers which entered this frigid, cold and deep body of water. But only after 50 meters, like 160 feet, they were approached by multiple humanoid, alien, grey-looking creatures, which were 9 feet tall and looked like they were wearing a helmet type of device. But there were no visible oxygen supply, so creepy encounter. And they looked like they got tight silvery suits on. So, and now it's getting very wild because one of the divers tried to capture one being. which prompted an unknown force which immediately surfaced all 7 divers like the sub was surfacing, leaving 3 of them dead at the scene immediately. And the other 4 suffered more or less significant injuries. So the immediate pressure change caused by the unknown force can cause very severe injuries in the human body. So, we can speculate here. The energy or unknown force most likely was a self-defense act by the beings, prompted by the, to be honest, otherworldly, typical Russian behavior, the attempt to catch one of the seemingly intelligent 9 feet tall underwater aliens. So that's very wild. So I guess you can not say these beings were evil. That's like just a self-defense act, in my opinion. So this case is also known as the creatures from Lake Baikal in Russian UFO literature. And referring to Richard Dolan, the Soviets tried to suppress publicity of this case regarding the incident. And we are talking 1982, so more than 40 years ago this happened. So God knows how deep the Russians went and if something changed their very stupid game plan. We can speculate here about possible alien infrastructure in the immense depth of this mysterious lake. So I guess this is a very deep lake and there can be very mysterious things down there. And I would love to see an open investigation on this, but I guess the Russians done dozens of investigations on this lake and they're not gonna share their data, I'm pretty sure. So let's move to the next section, frequent USO locations and hotspots. Before we cover the first and second degree hotspots, I want to talk about frequent locations where USOs had been reported, but not the hotspots. Naturally, the amount of sightings reflects the existing located population. So for example, in more open countries like US and Japan, you have a lot of sightings due to more natural reasons like high amount of ocean and seasides and high population, which we got also in China and the modern Russia. But these countries are more closed, especially China. We got no official sightings out of China, basically. But we could extrapolate the data, and I guess the Chinese got UFO sighting as well. It's just a closed country. A lot of USO sightings are continuously reported from the Gulf of Mexico. There's like many drug smugglers and counter operations against these smugglers, and there's some footage and some cases reporting USOs. Then in Canada, the Shag Harbor incident, for example, you can look up this case, it's a big USO case as well. And in Japan, especially after the nukes had been dropped, there were more UFO sightings and plenty of water around this island. So basically more USOs than on a landmass continent. So now I'm going to show you the Dolan map of USOs. It's just a little part of the map. I don't got the full map, unfortunately. And you can see Puerto Rico and the Caribbean are pretty much dense. There's like a lot of hotspots, a lot of incidents in this area. So let's go to the next section, the hotspot, Puerto Rico and the Caribbean. The data says this is the single most spot location visited by UAPs and USOs. There are tons of cases. I've already mentioned 2 briefly, but to give you a better picture, I will make it 3. And I was not even digging deep to find these 3 cases. The Mona Isle case from March 1977. Luis Munoz Acuña rented a plane to fly to the small isle with his wife and friends. And the following has been witnessed by multiple people. An intense light beams from the surface of the ocean, a white light, standing still and then moving left, south with rapid speeds. And there are a lot of these small cases by normal citizens, and a lot of them are classified like whistleblower-esque military cases. And I forgot to mention that the person from the last case was even no normal civilian. He was in the Puerto Rican House of Representatives and also initiated a special committee to research and investigate UFO/UAP. So the government over there is quite active in this area. Speaking of activity, back to the Dolan map, where you can see the sheer amount of reports in the Caribbean area. Undisputed number 1 hotspot regarding USOs. But there's more. So we go to the next section, the second degree USO hotspots. The Mediterranean and Baltic Sea and Japan. And these are mostly private citizen accounts spread over multiple decades involving all kinds of sightings, from things like fisher boats, especially in Japan, research missions, early oceanography, for example, and nuclear submarines, which we got a lot of USO reports from them. And I guess, they're doing shenanigans in the deep waters, so I guess most of the stuff is basically classified. To the fisher boats accounts, they were like around since the 1800s, so there were no adversary tech around. No possibility that it's Russia or Japan flying around with advanced technology 300 years ago, 200 years ago. And yeah, about the nuke stuff, I already told you there's a UFOs and nukes subsection of ufology, which is pretty interesting as well. And I'm going to link some material for people who want to dive even deeper on the depths of the USO phenomena and who want to get the data of more cases. But let's move to the next chapter, which is another first-degree hotspot, and this time it's in the USA. Catalina Island and Southern California. Tons of reported sightings. This is another first-degree hotspot, civilian and military, including TicTac, Go Fast, and many more, considering there was very little motivation for military personnel to report anomalous activity to get no problems in their job. Graves and Fravor account are more the exception, even today and after the still monumental UFO hearing in June 2023. So we can extrapolate here, plus the multiple dozens of normal UFO sightings over there. It doesn't take long to find cases involving especially USO in this area. Like you saw in the intro part 2 about the strange anomalous feature at the seafloor, it's also located in the aforementioned area. But we will pick up on this a little later in the video. But it's to mention here because there could be a potential connection, a relation to the high amount of reported USO activity. So let's move to the next section. Retired Rear Admiral T.Gallaudet, an important figure in ufology these days. And retired one-star admiral from the Navy, and he was the first oceanographer of the Navy as well. He is the Undersecretary of the US Department of Commerce for Oceans and Atmosphere and administrator of the National Oceanic Atmospheric Advisory Board, short NOAA. He's an active ufologist, podcaster, member of the South Foundation, and a member of Avi Loeb's Galileo project. He's a very likable and smart guy who seems to be in for the good, but this could be a distraction from the possibility that he's an installed figure to steer the UAP narrative. But I don't necessarily think that's the case, but that's just my opinion. Although, he talks openly about counterintelligence efforts like Rick Doty, and he thinks they can be genuine. He seems to see the positive in people. I can't recall him being offensive at any time to any person in discussions or podcasts. He also claimed he received an email on the Naval Communication Network with the Go Fast video attached and a security issue mentioned, way before the publication of the video. And he claims it was deleted 1 day later after he received the email, and it was never mentioned again in the Navy circles. He brings know-how about oceanography and naval intelligence, paired with an open mind and seemingly genuinely interest for the topic. He also adds and opens the gate for an educated approach with the example of the involvement of the Naval Studies Board and ocean and sea experts. Like seen in the intro, to collect more data on our barely explored oceans and other water bodies, and to discover things, like the aforementioned anomalous feature on the seafloor near Catalina Island. And that's the next section. Let's talk about the spot. So before I'm giving you my thoughts and input on the seafloor feature, I will show you another clip in which you can get a better visual, like the one I show in the intro. So let's look at the clip.
Things like the Catalina object, the Catalina island object, which is this structure off the coast there. I don't know if you saw, I actually sent you some links. I can bring that up.
This is the one that actually was made publicized by Jimmy Church a number of years ago. Is that the same one? I always had the impression that that was explained conventionally in some manner as a kind of a photographic artifact of the way Google puts their maps together. I didn't think that that was considered to be a genuine anomalous structure.
Right, but what happened was Tim reached out to NOAA in his search of what's going on there to see if it was an anomaly.
National Oceanographic something agency. I can't remember what the acronym is, but yeah.
Yeah, and when he reached out, he was told, this is actually a Twitter post, if you take a look here. He essentially found out from NOAA that there's aspects of this object that just do not seem natural. This is the original, and this is the full shot, which is also recorded on USGS data. So it's not just Google Earth. This is what Google Earth just applied to their mapping online. They wiped out the object in the past 10 days.
So it's no longer there. And I see Tim's comment, and Ross Coulthard jumps in as well, saying hilarious that some clown thinks that by deleting an image off Google Maps, they'll somehow deter public interest in that. So yeah, well said, Tim and Ross.
Yeah, and I can show like a little video too.
So what this did appear in the documentary, as I recall.
At the end, yeah.
So what's the deal with it? Is this some genuine anomaly, or is that what it looks like?
It seems like it could be a genuine anomaly, and I found it kind of odd that it was removed in the past 10 days. Like, why would you do something like that unless you were trying to actively cover up what was there, right?
Well, their explanation might be something like, look, we're just trying to prevent the flow of misinformation. This is the word they use all the time now. No more misinformation. Yeah, that's pretty interesting and flat, isn't it? That looks like like someone's dining room table there.
Interestingly, it has what almost look like columns underneath.
Yeah.
And then it just has like a unnatural structuring. It's got an opening through the front, and even around the back, it has like structuring that goes all the way around this circular shape. But again, if you go to Google Maps now, you can't capture this aspect at all. That's gone. It now looks completely different. So
interesting.
Yeah, I think that one of those things would just kind of like blew my mind, because the documentary came out, and I put that in there because it was just an interesting little tidbit that Tim had taken an interest in it, and within 10 days of the documentary coming out, Google updated their maps to remove it. Is it a coincidence? I mean, I don't.
Well, what's interesting is that, that image was out for almost a decade, and I'm sure many people watching this program have seen that. And
so I'm going to show you a screenshot here from this clip. And I don't know, it looks a little bit different than the one Chris Lado showed in the intro of this video. So maybe he showed the wrong picture, but I'm not sure. So he claims it was removed from Google Earth shortly after he dropped his documentary on USOs. And T.Gallaudet said it's plain as day in the USGN naval database. So yeah, is it just a marketing thing, or do you think it's a very weird coincidence mentioned by film producer Darcy Weir? Could it just be disfigured by the way data is collected and put together on Google Earth, on Google Maps? So I hope we will know the truth about the seemingly anomalous spot in the future. But as a layman, we can't really judge the characteristics, and I think if T.Gallaudet is the real deal, we should keep an eye on SoCal and Catalina Island. We could speculate here, and this is what we do in the next chapter, which deals with the so-called ultra-terrestrial hypothesis. So, are these beings not from space? Are they from the inside of the Earth, or coming from the depth of the oceans? Or are they coming from space and just got bases and infrastructure on places we can't reach, like deep in the oceans, deep in Lake Baikal, for example? So this stuff could be considered an ultra-terrestrial hypothesis. Quick definition, like I mentioned, it doesn't have to be alien. That's like the difference, because it said terrestrial, but ultra-terrestrial is basically saying it's an ancient, advanced, older civilization coexisting on this planet with us, but we got no connection to them, no communication, no open contact. And there's not much to say, but let me know your thoughts about this thought experiment. What can be the reason why these USOs, craft, and beings appear under the water? And now we go to the next section, my personal synopsis. Considering the percentage of ocean and water surface on this planet we discovered, we can say we know very little about life in the oceans and on this planet in general. And we know very, very little about our seafloor, which is only mapped to 25 to 50% with high definition technology. So it's a total new dark habitat. And talking about UFO, UAP, or USO cases, it can be said that if this is all a giant global, decades-long, large hoax, it's hard to believe that all these accounts are explained away with ease. In this short briefing about USOs and transmedium craft, I only touched on a fraction of USO cases, and it still seems very unlikable that they are all fake and explained by nature, birds, or other potential misinterpretations. So over such a long period of time, for anyone interested, I will leave plenty of material in the description to dive deeper in the vast ocean of UFO-related phenomena involving water and the oceans. Additionally, I can recommend more mainstream documentaries like Transmedium from Darcy Weir, as well as the documentaries from James Fox, which he will release a new documentary pretty soon, I'm sure. Darcy Weir plans to make a second part of the Transmedium series on the #1 USO hotspots, Puerto Rico. So let me know your take on the presented cases and USOs in general, down in the comments. So the program ends now, and thank you for watching, and consider subscribing to get notified when I put out more content regarding all of these things.
Oh, I'm totally convinced that we're experiencing a non-human higher intelligence. By the way, there's non-human intelligence all around in the ocean, especially when you look at marine mammals like whales and all that. But this is non-human higher intelligence, and they, of course, are possessing craft, vehicles, whatever that can do things we can't explain. And with technology we can't explain, and with laws of physics that are not what we know them to be, obviously. So, and I am completely convinced, because I know the people who were in the government programs, the legacy programs that oversaw both the crash retrieval and just the analysis of UAP data. So that I'm very confident in these people, former intelligence, former DoD, and we are working as a team behind the scenes to advance disclosure, a controlled disclosure, mind you, as was put forth in the Schumer Amendment.